Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Jeannie. I'm a 6'2" self-projected projector. I have a defined head, ajna, throat, and G-center, and they're all connected straight down the middle channels, which are all part of individual circuitry. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the gates in the head center, and this is probably going to be a 3-part video. That way I don't go on for too long. I'm going to talk a little bit about the head center. Now, the head center has to do with mental pressure, and it's the pressure to comprehend, to think, and to make sense of things in the world. If you have a defined head, you're going to have a defined ajna. And the pressure moves from our thoughts, the head, towards conceptualization in the ajna by pushing, because it's a pressure center, right? And it's either, depending on which gate or gates you have defined, it's going to be pushing our questions towards formulas and opinions, our pondering towards clarification and insight, and or our confusion towards realization and ideas. Now, human design refers to this pressure as inspiration. So, first tip is whenever we're starting to feel that mental pressure, because it can be so easy to like focus on the pressure and how uncomfortable that is. Can we start to substitute or kind of play with this connection of like pressure really is inspiration? Maybe that's trying to come through or push through. Yeah, push, because that's the word that source material uses, is pushing. And many times we can have a lot of internal resistance to this pushing, which makes things a little bit more uncomfortable and a little bit worse. So, inspiration is not a motorized energy that leads to action. And this makes sense because the head center isn't a motor, it's a pressure center. And it's not very easily connected to a motor center. There would have to be like a lot of definition in order to like connect it at some point, but it's not a motorized energy that leads to action. It's a pressure that drives our mental activity. And this can be experienced as, for example, the pressure to ask questions and expect answers. Now, the head pressures or directs mental activity to the ajna along 3 channels. Now, if you don't have your head defined, I feel like even if you still have gates defined, you can still experience that pressure. So I'm not going to go into the full channels. I'm going to focus mainly on the gates, and then maybe later down the line I will do maybe a more in-depth video with each of the channels. So each gate in the head center kind of has this keynote related to time. For example, gate 63 is related to the future, 61 is in the moment, and 64 tends to deal with the past. Okay, so like I said, in today's video I'm just going to focus on one of the gates, and then we'll do the other 2 in separate videos. Okay, in today's video we're going to talk about gate 61, which is the gate of inner truth, also known as the gate of mystery. Gate 61 deals with the pressure to know, to unravel the mystery, and to inspire with unique moments of absolute recognition. It's a knowing that moves us towards deeper levels of acceptance, where we can embrace what distinguishes us from others. If you have this gate, you might find that you love to spend time musing and mentally delving into the unknown. When you know that you have a unique insight and wait for the right time to express it, you feel liberated. When your knowing inspires, empowers, or mutates others, you feel empowered. Compared to the collective mind, which is either focused on what happened in the past or predicting what may happen in the future, your individual mind yearns for silence now, for all the voices and dialogue to stop. And that's very true. Like, I find that my mind is very, very chatty. If you give in to the intense pressure and let the unknown haunt you, your inspiration can become confused by delusion, leading to deep uncertainty and anxiety. The secret is to enjoy your thoughts and let your inner know enjoy your thoughts and let your inner knowing, your inner truth reveal itself in its own unique timing. And if you don't have gate 24, you're not designed to solve the mystery, but to simply enjoy it. So if you have this gate 61, I know I've recently been in this mind body connection course, which I'm like really loving the material and everything that I'm learning. But I find that I get so triggered because I feel like there's this negative connotation towards like thoughts and thinking and things like that, because like they want to get you into the body in order, to release the emotions and the trauma and things like that. For me, I have like so much resistance to that, and I think it has to do with 61 because I really do love to think. I have the full channel, which is a channel of awareness, and it's literally the design of a thinker. So I feel like when they're telling me to like not think, um it's like taking away a part of me, because it's like, I don't know, I guess I've relied so much on using my brain, my mind, that, like I said, it can be very, very triggering for me. But the key to help that mental pressure not build up is to not allow the unknown to haunt you. And that can feel like these thought loops, these thought loops that loop, 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 and then it comes to a point where there could be a small pause in between, and in between that pause is whether you can, like, if you have enough awareness, you can either choose to go back into the mental loop and continue with the torment, or break free from it. So it's looking for those gaps, and when those gaps appear, what I do is remind myself that this isn't a knowing, it's a knowing that is very spontaneous in nature. Like, you can't control it. And it's like the more you look for it, the more it evades you. So the key is to not look for it. It's just enjoy the thoughts, like it says in the source material. Enjoy your thoughts and let your inner knowing or your inner truth reveal itself to you in your own unique timing. So sometimes, like, you have to wait. And what I have found from experience and, like, creating awareness on how this works is like, this tends to be much more amplified when I'm spending too much time alone, when I'm isolating too much. I'm alone too. But sometimes, like, there is such a thing as isolating way too much. When I'm not able to share my thoughts, my insights with others, that's when I also feel like it compounds. So for me, like, creating content and put my posts on my Instagram account are a form of like creative release, and reminding myself that it's a very spontaneous process. The more that I look for it, the less likely I am to find it, or for that inner knowing to drop in. And it literally feels like a dropping in. And many times I've experienced it, like things that I've literally spent days or weeks thinking about. The moment that I'm able to release that need to actively think about the thing, and let's say I'm having a conversation with someone, or I'm working, or I'm like going on a walk, or moving in a way where I'm like really like in the moment of whatever it is that I'm in or doing, or in the conversation, it'll literally feel like are dropped in to my awareness, or like I'll be having a conversation with something, and then it'll feel like bam, bam, bam. Sometimes, like the last time I experienced that, I had like 3 or 4 things that I had been pondering and contemplating on my own for like days at a time just drop in without me doing anything. So it's like, oh, that's how it works. But it does take like a lot of self-restraint from going into these thought loops of remembering, oh, they're just gonna drop in. What can you immerse yourself in? What can you lose yourself in? And to create enough space for that inner knowing to just drop in. I really like how it says here that the secret is to enjoy your thoughts. If you like to journal, I would play with journaling or writing down thoughts that you find like really beautiful. I think that's how one of the words that I use to describe my thought process. I think it's beautiful. Um, Also, kind of like using all that mental activity with others, not so much for yourself, um, which is like for me, I think that's one of the things that really helps, like with coaching or. Okay, from a Gene Key perspective, the shadow of 61 is psychosis. The repressive nature is disenchanted, and this occurs when you turn away from the pressure of the 61 shadow. Um, the repression of the questions of one's true origin leads directly to imitative, conformist behavior in the world. I feel like this is what I'm experiencing a lot lately. Um, Disenchantment is an inner giving up that usually has roots in our childhood conditioning. It is hiding from our own question because it terrifies us. Um, when the 61st shadow is refracted through the repressive nature, we can go through the traditional route of, like, for example, education, religion, or science. But deep down inside of us, the question remains, and disenchantment becomes our true inner state. So no matter how hard we try or how much we gain and succeed in the world, inwardly we remain unfulfilled and restless. And this is something that I feel like I've really been going through lately, as I've kind of like trying to um, craft offers and kind of figure out like what it is that I want to do, and things like that. I kind of reached this point actually, like, what was it, earlier this week, or no, last week. I'm like, what's the point? Like, what am I doing? Like, it doesn't seem to be working. I think I just want to give up. And I kind of had this moment where I was like, I decided, like, I'm just going to give up. I'm going to go back to doing what it is that I know how to do. Because I know they say, like, that might be a form of hiding, and it's comfortable, and it's what I know, and it's fine. Like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's not necessarily exciting, but it's fine. Like, I can do that. And then I got a phone call from a friend, and we were catching up, and I kind of said to him, I think I'm just going to give up and just like stop pursuing what it is that I've been pursuing. Um, I started to get really emotional by like me sharing that with somebody else, not just to myself, because I didn't get that emotional when I kind of just admitted defeat to myself. It wasn't until like I shared it with someone, sorry, that I was able to tap into the emotion. And I want to say maybe it's part of like the self-projected side of me, because it wasn't until like I heard myself say it out loud that I was able to tap into like that sadness, or like hear what it says, like disenchanted, of like, well, I don't want to do that, because like if I mean, what I'm doing is fine, but it's just fine. Like, it's not exciting, um, so yeah, as I'm filming this video, inner truth just dropped in. Reactive human nature becomes obsessed by the question coming through the 61st shadow. They become frozen and fixed on a single answer to their inner question. They find a safe and comfortable place in the structure, leader, creator, direction to which they have become attached. What they do is place an intellectual answer over the top of the question, and they build their reality around the answer. By rigidly holding on to their answer, they also have to deal with the psychotic dilemma of having found the one true answer to the great question of existence. They become fanatical about their discovery and usually become some form of missionary in its further propagation in the world. Beneath the surface is a well of insecurity that bubbles to the surface as anger. This anger further protects them from having to deal with the true question within them. So the gift frequency, which is the one that I try to focus more on instead of the shadows, I just use the shadows to kind of like gauge where I'm at, and then step into the gift. For the 61, it has to do with inspiration. And inspiration is what happens when you stop worshiping God and start becoming God. And this is where like I kind of drop out of the Gene Keys. Okay, this is kind of where I drop out with the way some things are explained in the Gene Keys. I do come from a very Christian background, so just that sentence alone gets like, whoa, hold on. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. But the information mentions that despite its wonderful creative manifestations in the world, inspiration involves a powerful dismantling of the inner realities that have been built by your mind. It begins when you place yourself directly in the firing line of the inner question that lies within each human being. The path of inspiration often begins as an outer quest as you seek answers from the outside world through system, teachers, or disciplines. And in the beginning, inspiration comes to you sporadically as flashes, in which you fleetingly perceive the nature of reality in a distilled form. Sometimes the inner truth may be revealed to you for longer periods of time, and those shattering and powerful experiences usually alter the path of one's destiny. What separates inspiration from other heightened experiences is that after inspiration, you are permanently altered, and I find that's very true. Like once the inspiration hits in, it's like you just can't go back to seeing things the way you saw them before. Even a brief flash of true inspiration will change the way your awareness operates. Through inspiration, you're being prepared for an even greater experience than you can yet conceive. Okay, so there's a big concept of like creativity with this gate, and also like a keynote of patience, because inspiration can't be controlled, it just kind of drops in. You can feel quite depressed in the waiting period. And this is an individual channel, gate, I'm sorry. I have the channel, so I'm taking care of the channel, like how I experience it. So, individual circuitry is prone to melancholy. So, when there's this kind of like lull or ebb in inspiration and creativity, you can feel quite melancholic, depressed. I also came out of, I feel like, a season of a melancholic state. It just took me a while to pick up on it because it was also kind of like layered with grief. For me, I just realized that basically the first quarter of the year is very intense for me because so much happened. Like, for example, in the month of January, that's when my dad passed away. In March was when not March, I'm sorry. February was when mom got admitted to the hospital. There was a lot of chaos going on around the month of February. And then in March is when mom passed away and also a close friend passed away. So January, February, March have like a lot of, really heavy energies for me that I'm still working on releasing. And with grief, I find that it always comes in layers. Like this year, it was 5 years since mom passed away, and I wasn't expecting the grief to kind of show up the way it did. But then, as I contemplated that, I was like, oh, well, it's kind of a big deal. It's been 5 years. I didn't think I would even make it a year without her. So I allowed myself to kind of contemplate and celebrate how far I've come and not focus so much on like the sadness. Learn and practice focusing on the joy and how far I've come and things like that. But I definitely felt like that all these concepts of like melancholy and lack of inspiration, patience, waiting to kind of like write that out. And it's not that time, because in my mind, I kind of made that mean like, oh, you're wasting time, life is just floating on by and you're not doing anything. Because I literally had no motivation to like to work or to film or to create content or anything like that. But then I realized that the more I surrendered to like, okay, it's grief. It's grief and not judging it, you know, it, and I think that, okay, this is a little bit of like with the solar plexus. Um, what the solar plexus kind of teaches us, where, you have high states and low states, and the low states kind of help you appreciate the higher states. Kind of that same way with like the melancholy, um, and the things that happen within that time frame of melancholy can really lead to a creative process once you come out of it. So I hope that makes sense. I don't know if it did, but
It also says that with 61, you are a pressure machine. Deep inside your body, the pressure of the mystery of your being beats in the heart of every single molecule of living DNA. Um, it represents a mystery hiding inside every single unit of matter in the universe. The mystery, I'm not going to go into that. So, just to recap, some of the ways that I manage the 61 is just creating awareness around the loops, the mental loops, looking for that pause in between loops and reminding myself that the knowing isn't going to drop in when like I'm expecting it to or waiting for it to drop in. It's a very spontaneous process. The more I engage with life, the more I engage with the people around me, it's just going to drop in. Being patient, not isolating so much. Yes, honoring that as a line too. I do like to spend alone time, but also, not so much to where that mental pressure really builds up and I really start feeling like that feeling of like I'm gonna go insane. So whenever I have had, because I still have them, I still have those moments where like I get really, really in my head. Um, Going for a walk or doing my hip and shoulder practice. Um, that I can really like tune into like what how does my body feel. Sometimes I'll like I feel like I still use the mind a little bit because it's hard for me not to use the mind. I'm still practicing, but it's like I'll focus on like, okay, how is my body moving through space and time? What do I feel? What do I sense? What do I see? And really like what am I feeling? If I'm cooking, like can I focus on feeling, my hands chopping, whatever it is that I'm chopping, really get into the feeling, touching component, which I think is one of the suggestions I mentioned when I was talking about the full channel. It's got this touch component. For me personally, I feel like, okay, if I'm by myself, like I will kind of like, squeeze my hands so that I can feel that or do body tapping to kind of like help get myself back into the body. But I do find, just like as I was mentioning, like when I was having that conversation with a friend, having someone else to kind of witness that, or even having someone else just um, do the body tapping for me, or just like squeeze my arms. I find like squeezing my shoulders and things like that. Really, I find that really, really soothing. I don't always have access to someone though, so if you like have a partner or a friend or a roommate or parents or siblings that can kind of like really help you, um, getting really comfortable with saying, hey, I'm really in my head right now, I've got all this mental pressure. And if or you can combine it, with that speaking out the mental pressure, what it is that you're thinking, with a combination of like some form of body movement, um, journaling, voice notes, um, getting really immersed in an activity that you really like, whether it's watching a movie or sometimes taking a nap. Sometimes you have to like completely shut down if you can't find another way of relieving the pressure. Taking a nap, even if it's a 10-15 minute nap, with the intention to help yourself relieve that pressure. So, okay, I think I'm going to pause there for now. If you guys would like for me to go more in depth into this material, let me know if you have any specific questions. I'm trying to keep these videos shorter. Um, but yeah, okay. Any questions, comments, insights, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below, and I will either answer them there or maybe it'll serve as an inspiration for other videos. That's another one I want to mention with 61. Now that I think about it, using that quality of like wanting to solve the mystery for others, not yourself, which is similar to like the other head gates that I've discussed. I feel like there's that common theme of like not using those energies for yourself, but using them to be of service to others. For me, that comes, through making content, Instagram content, coaching sessions, things like that. I feel like that really helps me feel so much better, especially like if there's recognition, if there's an invitation, that just completely changes my energy. Um, And there was one more thing that came to mind. Let me see if I can remember. Oh, of course, using strategy and authority. Using strategy and authority to determine if this is a thought that you should pursue or not. Okay, so as I was saying, wrapping this up, um, my handle on Instagram is at Gmail Salcedo. There and on my website, you can find more information on different ways of working with me. And yeah, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Okay, the reactive nature is fanatical. You become obsessed by the question coming through. I feel like I'm just really being tested right now. It's like, what the hell does she want? Like, let's help her. Let's help her determine this. I don't know what that was, but it kind of flew into my eyeball. Meatball scratched me. I had a caterpillar climbing on me. There's a lot going on. Okay, let's focus again.